So we're going to see a demonstration of exactly how apologetics work and why they are able to try to push their point by confusing the issue, confusing the information, and then forcing the information to fit into a narrative so that their Bible can be true. Me and this gentleman have been having a back and forth, respectful back and forth, I might add, uh, as far as this information, but I don't like typing long, so I would do a video instead. So what he is claiming on here is that he's saying, sir, your timing is off because you're never mentioning the historical fact that Cyrus, I believe he means Cyrenius, served twice in Syria, once while Herod the Great and also at the latter end of Archelaus' reign. There is actually zero factual information that Cyrenius served as governor of Syria twice during the time frame of Herod's reign or at the end of Herod Archelaus. As a matter of fact, what history does show us is that during the time frame of Herod's reign, that Cyrenius was a legatus in Turkey, that he was fighting a war, or fighting battles against the Celtic and the Thracian tribes up in the mountains of Turkey called the Hamadans, and he was fighting that during the time frame between 12 BCE and 1 BCE. So therefore, he was not the governor of Syria at that time, and actually became the legatus of Galatia during that time frame. So him serving over Syria does not work. Now, the reason why you want that to work is because there is theories of there being additional census that was done during the time frame of Herod, which would have been in 8 BCE, which there's evidence of that, but that was mostly done in Rome. And then there was another one that was done in 4 BCE, but that one was not done in Judea, and Herod had already, that's the year that Herod died in 4 BCE. So many have tried to force that to be the issue. Many apologists have tried to force that to be the issue, but when it's just simply not true. He was not the governor of Syria at that time, by which Luke claims the birth of Jesus happened at 6 CE, with him being the governor of Syria. Now you go on to say that both gospels are meant to be read simultaneously to keep the time of events in order. That sounds like a force. That's one of those things that you have to force it to do that in order to make it fit. When, if it's the gospel, it should be able to stand up on its own 2 feet and not have the necessary need of someone else. But when you do read them together, they actually show the contradictions within them as to how the timelines don't fit. You said Matthew actually picks up after he is already born and living in Nazareth. 2:11 clearly states, in the house. There is no mentioning of a manger. Of course, a manger is not mentioned in Matthew. The manger is actually mentioned in Luke. When the angel is actually talking to the shepherds, he said that these will be a sign for you. There will be a child in swaddling clothing lying in a manger. He will be your savior. That's in Luke. That's not in Matthew at all. So I agree with you there. And I never said that it was. The other part about them already being uh, in Nazareth is just an incorrect reading of any of these gospels. When you look at, and you just pointed out in the house, but at the beginning, verse 1 says, now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, the wise men came to Jerusalem. So these wise men came to Jerusalem. And then after they left Jerusalem, the wise men went down and they told Herod that he was in Bethlehem in Judea. And then the wise men went down to Bethlehem. He sent them to Bethlehem, go and search diligently for the child. And when you have found him, bring me word that I may come and worship him. That's what Herod said to the wise men. And he said, then when they saw a star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary and his mother, and fell down and worshiped him. So we don't know how many days after this child was born that now he was with Mary and his mother, but we do know it's within the first 8 days that they were, that the wise man supposedly would have come and seen him, since they were still in Bethlehem. Because after the wise men leave, then an angel comes to Joseph and tells Joseph that he is to flee to Egypt. So there is no 8-day cleansing and going to Jerusalem to do the 8-day cleansing of Mary and the baby Jesus. They go directly to Egypt and they stay there until Herod is dead. And then upon returning from Egypt, they see that Herod Archelaus is still in charge, and so they then move up to they go to Galilee, they go to Nazareth at that time frame, because at this time frame of how Mark is writing this, Matthew is writing this, Judea, Galilee is not yet a Roman province, so they were free from that rule of Herod Archelaus. But you got to think about the timeline of this now. We got Herod the Great dying at 4 BCE. So Jesus would have had to have been born before then for the wise men to have spoken to him. Herod Archelaus takes over at 4 BCE. He reigns until 6 CE. So if they returned and saw that when he had died, because it says, behold, when Herod died, this is in Matthew, behold, when Herod died, when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared into a dream to Joseph and saying, rise up and take your child and the mother and return to and go to the land of Israel, who sought the child life are dead. Those who sought the child's life are dead. So now they go back, but this is right after Herod died. So they would have come back in 4 BCE. So are we with me? So everything now is happening in the BCE era. Nothing is happening in the CE era. Herod dies. There is Archelaus is in charge. They return to Galilee. Now Luke picks up differently. So when you get to Luke, you said Luke clearly states that they returned to Nazareth after the circumcision, and states that the age was 12 on a particular occasion of going to Jerusalem for the Passover. But what you're missing here, and you're saying that Passover in Matthew shows that they returned back to Nazareth after Archelaus was already in charge. Yes, that's correct. But look at the timeline again. Luke is saying that he was born during the time frame of the Roman census in Judea by the governor Cyrenius. That happened when Archelaus was disposed of, which happened in 6 CE. So Archelaus wasn't in charge. So they couldn't have returned. How could they have returned while Archelaus was in charge if the census wasn't done until Archelaus was kicked out of his charge, out of office? And then it tells about him being born at the time frame of the census. And when they returned to Bethlehem, there was no room in the house to have a baby, so they had to go in the inn, which is the bottom of the house where the small animals are kept. So it doesn't match. Archelaus is not in charge, but Matthew talks about Archelaus being in charge when they return. Then Luke goes on to say that after he is born and the shepherds come and see him in the manger, then after 8 days, they go to Jerusalem. Mary they pay their 2 turtle doves so that Mary can be cleansed and the baby Jesus can be cleansed. And then they return back to Jerusalem. And it says that every year they return back to Jerusalem. And then on that 12th year of Jesus being alive is when he speaks to the people in the temple. So you see how the timeline just simply cannot match. And you ask what verses are the timelines. I have already given you some. But the fact that Luke says that he was born in the year of the census starts the birth at 6 CE, which meaning that it is 24 CE. Is that 12 plus 12 plus? I mean, it's 20 CE when Jesus is speaking to the men in the temple. But if you go with the Matthew story, Jesus had to have been born prior to that. We don't know exactly when prior, but it's prior to that during the reign of Herod. So he had to be born before 4 BCE because he returns to Israel in 4 BCE with his parents and they go to Galilee. But he's not born till 6 CE. You're with me now. Okay, do you understand? That's how these timelines are established. This shows the contradictions within the entire story. And you can't read them side by side and they fit. You read them side by side, and if you force them to, you can make it fit, but you would have to ignore historical data and information that we have about Cyrenius and the fact that we know he was when he was a governor of Syria. But y'all have a great